How to build a Blackgates Sweet Pea 5-inch gauge locomotive. Part 12. The general workmanship standard on this locomotive leaves much to be desired. Maybe I should use a casting for the standard support. Removing more parts and enlarging the exhaust holes in the frames. In this clip you can see that I've removed one half of the cab floor, which is just as well. This is what it looked like when it was in position. And this part of the build I do not understand. Why are the holes in the cab floor so big and not in the right position? This, however, is not a problem because in my opinion the cab floor metal is too thin. I'm going to use thicker pieces. Because after all, these two pieces of metal support the weight of the cab and the spectacle plate. Here's another view of the accuracy of hole drilling in the plates. Not only are the holes a tiny bit too big, they're in the wrong place. I do not know what went wrong here. It's quite a simple job to first of all bolt the standard support to the frames and then place the piece of metal over the top of the standard support and mark through the holes with a scriber onto the thin piece of sheet metal which becomes the top. And it gets worse. Once I remove the top, I check the integrity of the reversing lever's standard mounting. And it fell off. It had been silver soldered, but not properly. Maybe someone had used the wrong flux, I don't know, but this is going in the scrap bin. I'm also removing the steel angle that fastens to the frames. I'm going to replace this angle with some more, because the existing ones aren't going to fit very well when I bolt the casting in place. This part of the job took me by surprise. How can you get things so wrong? This standard support now lives in the scrap bin. Here is an unusual top tip time. It's a top tip about what not to do. On this engine just about every bolt is far too long, so you can shorten the bolts, but it's not a good idea to do it like this. The first part of the bolt broke off properly, the second part broke off after the nut, and the third part also was okay, but it's not the way to do it. It's a real bodge. Now it's time to remove the way shaft. And on this particular part of the job, the bolts are not too long. They are the correct length, so the nuts were very easy to remove, as can be seen here. This was by far the quickest part of the job so far. Remove the nuts, remove the way shaft, and then remove the bolts. On the sides of the cab floor components are two pieces of brass angle, and this particular one was quite badly bent. Brass angle is not a good idea for two reasons. One is it's weak and it bends easily, and the other one is it doesn't accept paint very well. I straightened this using my Barco spanner, a very useful tool. It's relatively unimportant though because both of these panels are going to be scrapped. I'm going to replace them with thicker panels. And the angle used as stiffeners are going to be made from steel. It looks to me like this builder was really having problems drilling holes in the right place in pieces of sheet steel. 3 of these holes have been drilled in the wrong place and plugged. Before discarding these parts, I thought I would show one more time how to use a Barco adjustable spanner for straightening bent parts. I will be, however, reusing these parts, 2 pieces of very strong steel angle, which will be fitted using shorter bolts. With the foot plates out of the way, it's time to move on to the next stage. I haven't yet removed the spring guidance system from the pony truck, but I will be doing that before I finish the job. When I bought this engine, it only had one motion bracket on one side. I don't know what happened to the other side, so I bought a casting to make 2 new ones. The same old story, the bolts are miles too long, so you can see here how many times I have to rotate the socket just to remove these 3 bolts from 3 nuts. I'm holding the nuts with my Barco spanner, and as you can see, these are so well made you can use them as clamps. Back to the job, one more to go. Look at the length of these bolts. It's really stupid using bolts of this length through such thin pieces of metal. You may have guessed it, but by this time I was getting fed up of long bolts. Thankfully, these are the last ones that are this length on the entire engine. I'm going to show the detail of the motion bracket. It's a simple gunmetal casting that fastens to the frames, and with the help of this fitting, it supports the guide bar, which guides the crosshead as the piston goes in and out of the cylinder. I've decided to have these frames powder coated. I wasn't sure at first. I thought, well, maybe I can paint them. It will be more expensive, but once the frames have had everything done at them that I'm going to do, that is the time when I will have them powder coated, not before. Here I'm removing the front panel. This is actually okay. I think I'll reuse this. It doesn't need to be very thick. And just for a change, the holes are drilled in the right place, although the countersinks on the mounting holes are not deep enough. Oh no, probably for the very last time, these bolts are too long as well. I'm just making sure that the front bolts are tight to hold the pieces of angle in place, because the front bolts will be powder coated along with the rest of them. Before taking the frames in for powder coating, I will remove these pieces of angle to check that there isn't any paint behind them. The next part of the job is a modification. In my opinion, the holes were a mess where the exhaust pipes from the cylinders go through the frames. I'm enlarging these holes with a hole cutter, which leaves a very deep burr on either side. Here I'm removing the burrs with my Proxon angle grinder. Here's a shot of the hole cutter that I used, fitted to my old but good DeWalt drill. After this job, the bench was full of swarf, so it seemed like a good time to use the vacuum cleaner and have a bit of a clean-up. Now with the exhaust pipe holes enlarged, a couple of the main mounting holes, one at each side, are a little bit close to the edge. The cylinders are mounted to the frames using M6 bolts, 5 of them per cylinder. And for the 2 holes that are very close to the edge of the exhaust holes, I'm going to make a couple of M6 studs to go in these holes. I could even use long grub screws, I suppose. Either way, the cylinders will be securely held in place. The main chassis with the buffer beams and the stretchers is very well made. And from a time point of view, it's much quicker with the chassis already made than having to make one from scratch. That's it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.